Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here, and I have Brent Perkins in the house. How are you doing, sir?
Really good this morning. Thanks, Austin.
I want to compliment you on an amazing background back there. You really, the bike I'm jealous of. Mine's in a storage facility in Texas, so I missed that. But we were just chatting a little bit, and so in pure fashion, I don't know much about you. I read your bio and what you had, so I'm very interested to dig in here. But if you want to start your story where you'd like, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. My story is kind of starts in two places, and where it kind of came to an interesting turning point was about 8 months ago. And I had stepped out of really the CEO chair, which is what I had worked my whole life to get into. And after 12 years of sitting in two different companies in that seat, I had this calling not to go back into it, to step out of it, to move away. And it just felt just kind of heavy and gross as I looked at stepping back into another version of it.
I'm sorry, this is so weird because I just did what you stepped out of 6 months ago. So I'm running a big business at this scale for the first time, and love it and hate it in the same context. So it's feeding parts of me that I need, but I know I can't do that forever.
It's not for everybody. It's really hard to be sustainable and to also live a life that honors who we are at our core. That's probably the hardest piece.
So you left months ago, but how long prior to that had the seed been planted?
Yeah. I would say about 8 years before that.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Well, I had two different stints, a 7-year stint with a biotechnology company, and then the last one was a 5-year run with a LED lighting company. And the biotechnology company was my first time sitting in that, going from VP of sales, president to CEO. And once I got there, it was great for a year or two, and then it felt empty. And then the chasing started, and then the travel started, and then the ignoring my family started, and then the ignoring myself started. And it was this cycle just to chase more in the business and have that fulfill all these pieces, and then leaving there when it wasn't fulfilling, and trying it again in another company, wash, rinse, repeat, and finding the same thing. And that's when everything kind of just fast forwarded to the point where it's like, okay, this is, I ended up getting divorced a couple of years ago. All these things just showed zero fulfillment, and that's where it finally led me. But it only took me 10 years to learn that. So,
well, I've interviewed 600-700 people, and what's interesting about like leaving a role like you left, it's not the money, it's not all those things. It's the status in the community that really erodes them wanting to make that decision, right? Yeah. The labels, right? Oh, you're a CEO, man. You have all the power. I'm like, dude, my job is not that fun anymore. I talk to lawyers. I talk to insurance people. I have to mitigate the risk. I clean up the messes. Yeah. I love it because I have a timeline on it, and I'm not gonna. I know that like that's not my long-term goal. There's a creating an end. But you were marching. You were waking up, marching down, a plank that didn't have an end to it.
Pretty much. And you speak of community, and the community, at least I saw being built, or one path for a community for CEOs is groups like YPO, EO, Vistage, and you surround yourself with other business owners, other CEOs. And most of those groups don't work on emotional intelligence or self-care. It's really all about, how much did you earn? What was your P&L? How are you doing? how'd you show up? And then we go out and we drink expensive whiskey together. Sounds amazing for about 2 minutes.
It's an amazing description because it's so true. It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And I spent my early years cutting my teeth in real estate, right? And if I have to hear one more person tell me about how many units they have, I'm going to shoot myself. Like, it's just like, it doesn't mean jack shit. And so my joke with everybody right now is that, let's say you have a business, right? Let's say you own it and you're CEO. And for 10 years straight, that you only make $100,000. That's it. And then on year 10, you sell it for $100 million. Was the business successful in 1 year or for 10 years?
Yeah. Good question.
We've declassified what means anything to anybody anymore.
I know. Yeah. And as I'm going through this journey, I now see the impact it had on my kids. Okay. And I'll see the role it played in, my marriage of 18 years. Mm-hmm. Not that it was solely me, but it was, I see my role. Yeah. Or the role I didn't play.
Mm-hmm. Are you working right now or?
I guess it goes back to that question you just asked. The last 8 months, 7 months, I wrote a book and I just published it a week ago. So am I working? Am I making money?
Well, here's what's interesting, right? And I this is so great. This is like the moment in time, this conversation is just so amazing. So you quit.
Yeah.
How long did it take till you felt like some semblance of like, do you still feel a little wonky? Like, or you woke up one day and you're like, okay, that like the identity of who I was is gone. And now I'm in this new version, like, because there has to be an anchor point. It's a huge transition in your life.
Massive transition. So I'll give you the Reader's Digest of the story, and then we can pick apart where it makes sense. So as I left that job in December and kind of wound it down, and just everything was feeling gross, I started a meditation practice in about 8 months before that. So almost a year and a half ago now. And I was sitting in meditation one morning and I just got this overwhelming like message, which is, hey, you need to teach what you're learning right now. And really, you should write a book. And I was like, you're joking me. You're kidding me. This is no way. And so the next day I was sitting in meditation again. This is December 30th, 2022. And it's like, you're going to write a book and here's the title. I was like, oh my gosh. And I ignored it for another week. And my daughter's like, just play with it. And so January 7th, I bought some software after listening to Tim Ferriss and just one of his podcasts on how to be a writer and what he uses software wise. And I just started writing and I started showing up every day just into that, just to see. Mm-hmm. And through that journey, the next 90 days, I fast forwarded this journey of how to show up, how to surrender. And I found an anchor point between the book and this other group I'm part of called Front Row Dads, which
by the way, because I've said it 15 times. Okay. Yeah. And I just have to, it's never going to stop. The greatest group of humans I've ever met in my entire life. I know a ton of them. I've interviewed 30 of them. Mike Higgins is one of my best friends. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. And I don't have a kid yet, but as soon as I do, I'm in. Like, it's just such an amazing mission of that group.
Yeah. What they did for me is confirm that, their mission is family men with businesses, not businessmen with families. So it was the community I needed to say, hey, this path you're on, ignoring, your old CEO, status and these things, that's okay. And by the way, what you're stepping into is so meaningful for us because they're actually all pretty high performing group of men that are trying to or want to put family first, whether that's spouses or kids. And for them to see another man actually, living part of that, which is what they were affirming me, they became a grounding place for me.
In the last, since you left your job, what did you have to unlearn about yourself?
Great question. I had to unlearn that it took doing to be valuable, and that there is immense value in just being, in the calmness and the stillness and the silence and the spaces in between. That's where the power lies.
And that's where the scare lies too. I mean, dude, I just did a rant prior to getting on the podcast. I do 5-minute rants.
Yeah.
And it was about that we've created a world of only inputs and no outputs. The voice of our boss, the voice of our mom, the voice of our kid, the voice of the 5th grade teacher, this podcast, this book, this everything.
Yeah.
We do not allow any space for creativity anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I see it with my kids, especially, but myself too. We get caught in this doom scrolling and everything is just inputting at us from every angle. And you're right. There is no room. And as at least like from my own experience, being somebody in business, hard charging, and I'm assuming this is for a lot of people who are either running businesses or climbing the corporate ladder or just working hard out there. It feels like you've got to step into the logic side of your brain. And we don't have, it takes space, it takes calmness to shift into the creative side. And it's amazing what can show up if we allow it. It's just really scary because at least I believed if I didn't allow myself to just, I got to create this, or I got to make this on the website, I've got to answer this email and do these things, because that's where I thought money came from and happiness came from and fulfillment came from. I was wrong.
The hardest thing that I'm having to do right now, and I'm aware of it, so it's still hard, but I understand, I'm giving myself grace, is that I don't get paid and we don't get moved forward as a company anymore from me doing anything. It's so fucking hard. I worked my entire life, been on my own since I was 17.
Yeah.
I was homeless. I worked 80. I worked 4 jobs. I worked 100 hours a week. And now, in that moment, when we bought a company, a retired company for $9,000, that's going to make us $1 million. That 2 hours I negotiated, they need me for that. And if I'm not rested, if my health isn't right, if my mind isn't straight, then I can't be that for them. And what's the point? So, I mean, I don't actually do any inputs anymore, but my relationship, my negotiating skills, my understanding of the bigger picture. And so I have to cultivate that.
Yeah.
And what I realized that really fucked with me is last year I was sick for a little bit, like 2 weeks, and don't get sick ever. And I realized that all my partners were in a bad mood. And I realized, oh, you're the stir that straws the drink. You have to be positive. The optimism, your health has to be the focus. And I've never had to look at myself and take care of myself ever, because I always give. And so it's such a weird world to live in where you finally have to be putting yourself first.
Yeah. I read a book in the last year called No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Okay.
I don't know if you've read that, but for me, I showed up as a giver everywhere in my life, from business to romantic relationships. And that book showed me and gave me the permission to find a healthy boundary where it's fine to give, but not when it depletes you, not when you haven't given to yourself first, not when you crosses a boundary. You don't take care of somebody else before you take care of yourself, or to violate your, something you have for yourself. So
I love that. So, there's a couple books in me, and they're roughed around draft, right? I've wrestled with telling my addiction and alcoholism story, because I don't think that story's done, but I think that story could have a nice endpoint to then tell the other part of my life, right? When you're done with the book. Okay. I've done almost 700 podcasts. I've never seen an episode. I've never listened to an episode. I don't want context to my thing. Did you read your book?
Yeah, I did.
And how hard were you on yourself?
Honestly, not very hard. And here's why.
You know what John Maxwell says about a book? He goes, the problem with the book is the moment that you put pen to paper is that thought has changed in your mind.
It's true. It's true. And I will add, for me, this was the final leg of my journey to trust and love myself.
Oh, okay.
I never put myself first. I never fully actually stepped into this piece where I'm full without needing it anywhere else. I don't need it in a job. I don't need it in a romantic intimacy relationship partner. And this book was my journey. Not only what's in it, but writing it and the people I met and the stories I'm telling throughout it. Mm-hmm. So I've read it probably 20 times, and I recorded the Audible, and I probably listened to it 3 times. It is almost like my Bible.
Well, you know why your book's going to be good? Because I can't wait to digest it. Because you wrote it for you. You wrote it for you.
I did. This is. I think this is poignant. I'm going to read you the dedication, which it's funny. I got a little bit of shit from some people, but I think it's beautiful.
Oh, it's great. I already know what it's going to say. You're like the Snoop Dogg. When Snoop Dogg thanked himself on the Walk of Fame, that's what I love it. I'm in. Yeah.
This book was written for Brent Perkins. Yes, myself. But I did go on to say, if I'm able to help myself, then I've done all that I can. My deepest hope is that through my dedication to myself and the work that only I can do, somehow it touches others, inspiring them to look inside and do the work that only they can do.
Amazing. I'll just tell you a story. I got sober. And when I got sober, I was like 3 or 4 months in. And I was spouting off at the mouth to everybody that would be in an earshot. You should get sober. You should get healthy. My coach, who's been in the sobriety place for like 15 years, got me on a Zoom call and said, hey, and pardon my French, he said, hey, asshole, shut your mouth. He goes, what, are you on your high horse now? And you're telling everybody you're righteous in your life? He said, fuck, be quiet.
Yeah.
He said, go to work. So I didn't tell anybody anymore. I didn't talk about it. I didn't say anything about it. 4 months go by. In the same day, I got 3 text messages in a 4-hour span from 3 people I hadn't spoke to in 2 years. And said, I just want to let you know, because you got sober, I got sober. And I go, wait. So you're telling me that me living my best life, instead of talking about it, is an example, and people will be inspired by that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I no longer tell people what to do anymore.
Yeah.
I just go live my truths. And that's what you did with your book. Is that you didn't say, oh, I'm hoping I make $1 million from this. That book to you for the rest of your life is a symbol. Mm-hmm. A symbol of who you, one of my favorite quotes in the entire world is, I'm not who I want to be. I'm not where I want to be, but at least I'm not who I used to be.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
And
Yeah.
That's what that book is, right? So write the book and leave corporate America. What's next?
So the overriding theme of the book, which is my journey, was how to show up and surrender. So how to be present, but in a way without any expectations, without any assumptions, to really surrender. So as I'm in that process, I know that I need to, while the book is genderless, it's actually been read by as many women as men, as far as I know. I feel called to support men. I feel like women have a lot more resources regarding this topic than men do.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I
do. It's super easy. It's not the act of them leaving corporate America. That's not what it is. Because if you sell that, then that's your niche and you're going to stick there. It's going to be exhausting. You're going to get burnt out just like you were in your corporate career. It's an act of finding who they are. And then they, in turn, decide what path is right for them.
Yeah.
Because 90% of the time with my clients, I'm only doing one thing and one thing only. I'm unfogging the windshield. Early on in my coaching, I told them what to do, and it was a, whatever. But what people don't understand is everybody needs somebody different. I got a client right now that wants the David Goggins experience. She told me, she said, all hands are off. She goes, you can be as direct as you want to be as aggressive as you want to be. I don't give a fuck. Let's go to work. Right. I said, be careful what you ask for, because I can get a little, spicy. And then you have people that I've coached that they don't respond well to that. And it's the opposite, right? But why can't a coach be that person for so many different people? It's because I know thyself.
It's true.
So when you, in turn, they said they like the book, they know thyself, then the options are limitless. And I think the number one issue with corporate America, and I've never jived with it, is that the options are zero.
Very rigid, for sure.
And because of that, people aren't allowed to be themselves. And when they're not themselves, they die inside. That's what it's about. It's not if my employee is going to work with me for the next 20 years. It's do they feel like there's a ceiling? I had a great mentor tell me, he said, make sure that your new ceiling, your ceiling is your new floor.
I love that.
And so you create a space where there are the options there. I can't control if you grow or not, but the resources are available. Let me give you a little stupid story, but it's the truth, right? I would love for my guys to work out. I am in a rural area that had a rough couple years, many rough years in the economy. They all smoke cigarettes. They drink Mountain Dew. It's the trades, right? The plumbing, HVAC, and everything. We've got a gym in the warehouse. I could easily say, man, I really would appreciate, these are all ex-military guys, so they know. I said, man, I really appreciate if y'all would work out more. I could say that, and that would get nobody. But instead, me and my CEO at 5 a.m. are going to be in there slamming weights. Give that 2-3 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
And you see the bosses in there? Oh, yeah. And so that's the problem with most people. And that's the problem with corporate America is don't do this, but don't look at me because I'm not portraying what I'm saying. And the problem with rural people, and especially the trade, is you might think they're uneducated, but these people know people like you've never seen. And if you don't live what you say you're going to do, they won't trust you.
Well, I think this is the problem with, this example is amazing, but it extends throughout all of society and all of life. And it showed up in some of the books I was researching. It shows up in social media and even in coaching, where it's like, hey, here's a prescription. Do 1, 2, 3, do X, Y, Z, and you're going to be great. You're going to be on track. And it's like, you know what? That doesn't fucking work for most people.
Yeah.
What works is, you know what? I went through this experience. She had this experience. He did this. And it may not, like on the surface, maybe like, whoa, you're not connecting the dots for me until you actually let it resonate internally. You're like, oh, that touches my story here. And we solve our own problem. And that's what you're alluding to, which is we have to solve our own issue, our own problems. It doesn't stick if we're told what to do. It never does.
What have you done in the span that you've been not working when that crazy voice creeps into your head? If you're not working, you're taking time for yourself. How dare you? Like, what do you do? How do you get yourself out of it?
I'd be lying if I said that I didn't let it get to me sometimes. But today, what I try to do is use that as a point to be like, okay, great. Then I'm going to do the opposite of what you say. And I'm going to go sit back in meditation for 15 minutes, or I'm going to do something to clear my head, because every time I do that, a different angle, a different idea, the calmness, the space that we can create in our lives, that we can offer ourselves, it's never, ever steered me wrong. And I've never heard anybody say it steers them wrong.
I have to ask you a selfish question for myself. When you came on for the second stint as a CEO, did the company start from scratch, or the company was already running? It started from scratch.
I mean, it was they had spent 4 years developing a product, had never gone to market with it. So
I would love to get your take on this. So I started many of businesses, still have my own businesses on the side, but now we're buying cash flowing businesses that have been around for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Okay. I digress. The problem is what I realized, and I had to stop doing because I'm a very fiery guy. I have a big vision. I have passion. My business plan's 60 years long. It's a whole thing, right?
yeah.
The energy that I need to bring to a startup and the energy I need to bring to a cash flowing business that's been around for 22 years. The startup needs big vision, explosion, fire, energy. The cash flowing business needs calmness, still, certainty, consistency of behavior. It's been such a paradox for me because it's two different humans. Because if I came in, the joke in the we buy cash flowing businesses realm is be careful what you do. The only new element in that business is you. Don't fuck it up.
That's so true. Yeah. The only thing I'll add to that, and that is great wisdom. And you're so right there. But I will add that while yes, new companies, startups they need a fire, like this passionate fire that's just stoked all the time, but it doesn't have to be you. And it still needs calmness behind that.
Dude, he just went down my throat into my heart. Yeah. It's just the issue being is that, CEO, man, it's lonely. It's lonely, dude. And I'm going to be as real as I can right now because it's just the truth that happened this morning. That's why this conversation is just cracking me up. I'm new to this. Like I've had 3, 4, 6 employees, right? We went from 18 to 50 in the last 6 months, all from me, like 50 people. We're going to go from 3.7 last year to like 8 million this year, first year, right? It's great. It's all good. I'm a means to an end right now. Let's just put it this way. I'm a builder. Okay. If you want me to take us from 15, 30, 50, 60 million to 100, I ain't your guy. You need the boring dude that brings in, taps it. That's just not me. Okay. I'm an acquisition guy. I'm a relationship. I'm a recruiter. It's what I do. I can motivate anybody. I 6 months in, right? Like I'm unique. I'm an owner, but I'm the CEO. So there's 6 other owners and I have to answer to them, but I have to deal with short-term and long. It's the whole thing, right? So instead of them asking for feedback on things I need to get better on, I wrote the feedback about myself. And I was very honest this morning. I said, I need to fix this. I need to fix that. And I sent it to them this morning because I realized that mentally I couldn't handle them shitting on me, but I did it for myself and they love it. And they feel great that there was that much clarity and intention and self-awareness. And so I'm not saying I hacked myself, but like you are there, the way I would describe it, on your own little island. And there's nobody to look up, even though they are the owner. I'm an owner too. And so there's nobody to look to. And so one of the biggest things I want to create for myself that I've been working on putting the pieces together is like a CEO group of like intentional humans. So you have an outlet, somebody to talk to, right? And I've been finding myself being more involved with golf lately because it's not work.
Yeah.
And you need like the bike, you need those things because like you can get consumed, right? And this hasn't been the greatest acquisition. I mean, the amount of skeletons we've found in this business, it's like a Lifetime movie. You don't want, And so, but I realized, I was telling a client this morning, like if you can take full ownership of what you're doing and you can be self-aware enough to know that you need to get better, you can create a lot of good improvements in your life. But if you don't want to hear them, it's really rough. Like so when you were CEO, did you have shareholders or were there owners and that you had to answer to?
Yeah, both companies had, while I was partial owner, we had other owners, all privately held.
So you were CEO and an owner in that one. How did you how did you go about knowing where you needed to get better in your job?
So at the first company, it was one that'd been around for 15 years, so it needed more calmness. The second one was truly more of a startup, so we're flying by the seat of our pants. I got feedback from the board in the first one pretty regularly. The second one was more difficult because there was really nobody giving me feedback besides my partners, and we were all running ragged. It took me trying to get that from Vistage, which I was part of for 8 years, which is the CEO peer group. Not a mastermind, really, it's a peer group. But again, that was a singular pillar, and I wasn't getting advice on, well, one guy might have had great advice on business. He was drinking himself into a stupor and, was about to blow up his marriage.
Yeah.
So it's like, wait a minute, that advice sounds great, except for, you haven't talked to your kids in 2 weeks and your wife doesn't like you. And so it's really, really tough to get well-rounded advice and feedback. And if I could go back and do all of it again, which I don't usually think this way, because I don't believe in, I don't have any regrets in life.
Yeah.
But how I would do it different going forward, I would not be a doer at all.
Okay.
And I would be only a coach, even though I'm great at marketing and copyright.
Walk me through that. Cause now I'm I'm loving this, because I feel like this is what's been coming for like
it's hard in a startup because you feel like you don't have enough money and you've got to do all these things. Yet the deeper I got in doing, the more I hated myself, the more I wasn't good in my own life, the less I showed up in all the ways that a true CEO should show up as a leader, as a coach. And had I pulled back and said, hey, I'm not going to help out with the website, even though I know how to do this. I'm not going to go do some of these other pieces that I can do them physically. I am better suited at making sure the rest of my team shows up and they're not burnt out and they're in the roles that suit them the best and that they work together synergistically and we're being smart here. That is the role that I feel like I should have played and will play if I step back into that role again.
And then now you just have to go into battle with the fact of feeling like you're not doing anything.
I mean, look, I'm sure a soccer coach knows how to kick the ball.
Well, you know what?
If he goes on the field,
the joke is the better you get at cooking, the farther you get away from the kitchen.
Yeah.
And so now, right, I have to fill in those areas that I'm not getting from this and other aspects of my life so I can be a whole person. Right?
Yes.
Meaning helping, mentoring high school kids, or we have some 17-year-olds, like coaching them, teaching them about life. Like I can't not do that stuff because that's what stuff fires me up. Right. And so, like the thing is my COO, like God sent, like, I mean, let me tell you something, like whatever he wants, he can have, because that's not me. Okay. Let's just put it that way. Like, so what you're saying resonates so much with me because it's what I've been feeling. Now I'm just trying to come to terms with it. Right. Of like, okay, there's a day where I don't do anything. And then there's a day where I'm putting out 15 fires and only I can put out that fire.
Yeah. When I talked earlier about showing up in surrender, it's really about unattaching yourself from.
Okay, let's calm down, Brett. Okay.
It's hard.
It's weird, right? It is hard, right? Because we attach ourselves to the meaning, right, of this thing. But I tell everybody the same thing. And anytime I get lost in what I'm doing, I come back to my vision for my life. I think you of all people will appreciate it more than most. So I'm 40 now, so I'm 70 years old. I'm living in Tuscany on my 20 acres, and I've got my 2 Airbnbs out there. And we've got I used to be a chef, so I'm cooking for the people and out of my garden and the Airbnbs they're staying at. And I go down to the market in the city to go get food to cook lunch for everybody. And as I'm walking down the street, somebody yells out, "Holy shit, it's Austin fucking Linney." And so he runs across over to me and comes up to me and says, I said, look, this is great. I said, but I don't know you. And he goes, "I know you don't know me, but you coach so-and-so and so-and-so changed my life."
Hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. And I know I don't know you well enough to say this.
You could say whatever you want.
There's still attachment there.
Okay, I like it.
The deeper you go on this journey, and I want to, by the way, I want to commend you, because I haven't stepped back into that CEO role yet, and it's really, really difficult. And I see all the work you've done in your life, and it's absolutely amazing. And you have so much to share with people, and you're doing it. You're living that, and I think that's amazing. But if nobody ever knew who you were, nobody ever came running across that field, and you impacted people in the same way, would it really matter? I have this, as you think of that, I have this kind of conversation with other, even in Front Row Dads, we talk about one of our pillars. We have 6 pillars. One of them is wealth and legacy. And they try to shift the conversation from, oh, okay, it's not a plaque on a gymnasium, in a school, but it's, it's who might show up, not at your funeral, but at your house to help your significant other cook the meal for everybody that's still there. And the deeper I go on my journey, I realize, for me, legacy is the invisible fingerprints we've left all over the world. It's the cutting of the ties to this intergenerational trauma. It's all these things you can't put your finger on, your name won't exist on. And even if you're the wealthiest person in the world, within 200 years, it's all gone. So what is real legacy? Legacy is this, to me, it's a more spiritual thing. It's in the ether. It's how you changed your family, your parents, your siblings, your kids, these other kids you're touching. And having your name associated with it, or people knowing it was you, doesn't matter, because you still changed the world. You changed how people show up the next generation. That's legacy. That's legacy, knowing I showed up for me, which allowed other people to show up for themselves. And that fulfillment doesn't need to be called out.
If y'all notice, I haven't said anything because Brett just fucking destroyed me. So it was great. Brent, sorry.
Okay.
I can't even think straight. Because when I first started coaching and I started getting into story work with my coaching group, he said, your need for your client to be better is still victimhood. Your need to be the reason that your client got better is still victimhood.
Yeah.
And the phase that I'm moving into my life, where I'm at, is that in my 20s and my 30s, it was all about what I was going to accumulate and what credit I got. And I'm realizing that what we're building, a true impactful vehicle of many companies across many states, I have to slowly and surely disappear.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes. And it's really weird because I've always been the one pushed out front. But I don't truly love that. Like, I do it because I'm good at it. But if you had it my way, that's what people meet me. They're like, dude, you're super chill. I'm like, dude, I'm like, I want 1,000 acres. I want a pond. And when it's time, when the lights are on, I show up. But when it's not, I disappear.
Yeah.
But like, but you have to be comfortable with like the COO getting the credit and this, that, and it's a thankless job. And I'm on board. It's amazing. Like, my filter is like impact at all stages and all times. Where else can you do that in a small business in a rural community, right? Like, we're changing, and it wasn't, to be honest with you, it wasn't what we set out to do. It wasn't what the vision of the company was, but this area created the vision that's going to, go over and over and over again. Everybody's so focused on Miami and Dallas and Austin. And what you don't realize is this entire community is made up of small towns all across the country. And it was something that my COO said to me, who was just a plumber at the time, who I stole from 6 other companies that he was going to get a job at, but went from me because he listened to my podcast. He said, I want you to sit and I want you to think about one thing and one thing only. And you can think about it, you can deal with it, you can address it, or you can't. Your investment into this company is going to not only change an area, it's going to change the kids, the people that you invest in, and it's going to affect this community for 100+ years. I know that that won't register with you, but think on that. And that's been I could go buy a business in Austin or Tempe and it'd be fine. And there'd be some people that get jobs, but every hire I do here, every job we do here, it's felt 5, 10, 20 times over. So now we have a true mission, a true impactful purpose that I don't need energy for, because it's super easy to wake up and know that that's what we do every day.
Yeah.
But the only thing people ask me, they say, what are you learning this year? And I said, leadership. It's all leadership. And they go, how do you be a great leader? And I said, remove your fucking ego. And it sucks.
It's true. It's true. On that note, I think what your mentor said to you, I would reframe a little bit. I don't think, for me, victimhood is the right explanation for it. Just listening to you for the last half an hour, you don't sit in victimhood. You've taken ownership of your life. You don't.
20 years did, not anymore though. Yeah.
Sure. But today you're not sitting here saying the world's happening to me and I don't have control. So I don't hear victimhood as that explanation. But what I do see is that you're human. You're a man. And we all have an ego, which is our lower self, and we have our higher self. And our journey on earth is to continue to understand and play this dance between, we need the ego to run this body, to work out, to drive our cars, to think, to do these things. And yet it doesn't have to rule all parts of our life. And finding that balance between where we can love our ego. I think there's too much hating of our ego, and we all talk shit to it and tell it it's ugly and it's dirty and I hate you. But we could give it a hug and say, hey, I hear you. Thank you for all you do. And I don't need you in this situation. And we shift. And that learning to do that in all the moments, which I'm still horrible at, is this journey. And that's just where I feel like you're dancing on some of these conversations, which is perfect because you're aware.
Oh, I can't wait to read this book. Geez. Yeah. Well, if people want to find out about the book, how would they do that? Where do they get it?
Yeah, I mean, you can get it on Amazon. It's called Papercuts, The Art of Self-Delusion.
Great title.
You could also go to my website and get it. The book's website is papercutssuck.com. So yeah.
The metaphor behind that is it's really great, right? Because I do branding for my clients. It's the smaller cuts that cut harder and hurt longer than the bigger cuts.
Yeah.
And we
we don't know where they came from.
Yeah. And we have so many individual paper cuts covered by Band-Aids that are pressed down that we have no idea what's what. Right? Oh, so great. All right. Well, I'm getting it right after this. I can't thank you enough, man. I really appreciate the conversation.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for showing up how you do. Thanks for all you do in the world.
You got, look, look, guys, anybody who's listened to the podcast for 4.5 years, I'll put myself right on the thing, if I can be open and honest, then they can too. So that's why I do it. But if you got some value from this, send it to a friend and we'll see you next time.